Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is time once again for the Wagon Sports Podcast. Before we get into our topic slate, I just have a quick question. Are you flicking us off in that video?
Dude,
In the
I've
intro?
wondered that
Because
every week.
I have too, and I keep forgetting about it. And then finally I saw this, and I was like, I can't tell if he's like pointing at us or if he's
I went
flicking us
like
off.
I went like this.
I saw this, but I couldn't tell if it was.
No.
I kind of did. I just had to check. But yeah, we have a great show for you guys this week. We just wrapped up Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. A lot of interesting things to discuss there and talk about the divisional round coming up. We're going to talk a little bit of NASCAR today as well. And of course, just overall sports in general. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to start with NASCAR. It was announced last week that this will be Kevin Harvick's final season, at least full time. He hasn't ruled out the possibility, coming back. Definitely doing truck races and probably some Xfinity races here and there. But he will step away from full-time racing in the Cup Series. And so I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that and what we also think is the future of Stewart-Haas Racing. Obviously, he's been the staple there for many years. He has really helped grow that whole organization. Once Tony Stewart retired and stepped away, he picked up that mantle, continued to develop them and get them to a place where they were winning, 10 races plus every year. Obviously, they did down year last year. We'll talk about that as well. But with him retiring, also, it's not clear if Almirola is going to retire after this year or not. He was supposed to retire last year. Tony kind of begged him to stay for one more year, at least, until they could develop some of the younger drivers a little bit more. But they may be missing 2 spots next year, and we're going to discuss what we think is going to happen there. Slade, you're a little bit more in touch with the NASCAR scene, so I want to get your thoughts on it first.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty interesting to see that Harvick's stepping away. I mean, this came, I think, a day after it was announced that him, Junior, and 2 other people, I forget who they were, that bought one of the lower level NASCAR leagues, race leagues. I forget what it's called, but they go to all the short tracks basically. It was announced that he was one of the part owners of this, and that this group was going to take over that. And then the next day, it was announced that he was retiring. I honestly have had weird suspicions with Stewart-Haas Racing ever since the whole Cole Custer incident. Ever since they had mentioned that because Haas was sponsoring the car, he had say on who was driving the car. Obviously, you would think that that's the case. But when you have 2 owners that are against each other, like they're the 2 sole owners of this team, and they're against each other and who's supposed to be driving this spot, I mean, it definitely seems like there could be some more chaos than what's being told to us behind the scenes. We've seen that Stewart, I mean, I only saw him at one track this season, and in the races that I got to watch the season before, I mean, it seemed like he was at every track. He also has got into a lot more of racing on his own in different series and stuff, so that may be the reason. But I don't know. I mean, Almirola, like you said, Stewart had to beg him to come back. Smithfield also was a big contributor there because it didn't seem like they were willing to sponsor anyone else for the car, yet they were still signed on for another year. So I don't know where they're going to go. I mean, with everyone wanting to buy a team and stuff right now, I mean, they could realistically just turn the team over to someone else for a huge profit. I mean, they could sell each individual charter out, and that doesn't seem all that crazy to me in just the thought of where these 2 have shown that there's disagreement when it comes to who needs to be in the car.
Yeah. I don't think, as far as, the disagreement over Custer, that's kind of a big thing, but at the same time, I think that's a microcosm of like you said, Stewart wasn't at a lot of races last year. Yeah, he was doing the NHRA kind of deal. He's also doing the All-Star Sprint Car Circuit. So yeah, he has a packed schedule, but especially there towards the end of the year, we saw him and NASCAR disagreeing a lot. He was being very vocal about his disdain for how NASCAR was treating a lot of the rule changes and how they treated Cole Custer, especially after the Roval incident. Listen, I fully support sending Cole Custer back down. You could tell when he came up his rookie year, he had a lot of confidence. He got himself into victory lane in Kentucky. And I don't know if it was the new car or what was going on, but you could tell he just wasn't all there last year. Was it a sophomore slump, and so on. But I think going back down to Xfinity, having a teammate like Riley Herbst, who he can easily outperform, but, we saw how good he was in Xfinity before he got his call-up. It could do good for his confidence, and so I see the reasoning behind that, and I kind of understand that. And it's been rumored a long time. I feel like Stewart-Haas as a whole knew Harvick was more than likely stepping away. he had said in multiple interviews before even last season that his deal was up this season. The new TV contract will come out next year as well. So he just kind of wanted to see in what where everything was going to shake out and so on. He's going to have a successful career in broadcasting. I think that's a given. But I mean, as a Harvick fan, I'm going to be sad to see him step away. Somebody that's been in the sport since 2001. He's going to be the last Winston Cup driver or person that competed full time in the Winston Cup to retire. So it's kind of another changing of the guard here in NASCAR as well. Um, but as far as Stewart Haas racing goes, obviously they're probably going to call Custer back up next season. But for that second spot is where I do have a lot of question marks. Like you said, they can definitely sell that charter off. Gene Haas is way more focused on F1 than he is on NASCAR. I feel like, again, we've seen Tony Stewart growing more and more impatient with NASCAR, and he's doing all these other projects. He has the SRX series, he has the All Star Circuit Champions, and he's doing his NHRA ventures as well. So I mean, his plate's full enough that he can easily walk away. Still be busy, not have to really deal with the boredom of retirement. And so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that maybe they sell a charter. It's just a three-car team going forward. Riley Herbst is not a good option in my mind to take over a Cup ride. He can barely fill the shoes of the Xfinity ride right now. I don't know enough about the free agency market next year for NASCAR going forward to say, oh, hey, here's somebody who can slide into that spot. I think they were kind of hoping Kyle Busch would come to them. Obviously, that deal just didn't fully come together. Slade and I have talked a lot about this, though, Nick, and I know you don't watch NASCAR a whole lot, but just any thoughts you have on the situation.
Yeah, so I might surprise you here. I did a little research, figure out exactly what I was talking about. So yeah, first thing, I think that whether you're a Harvick fan or whether you're just a regular NASCAR fan, I think that this announcement is bittersweet to some sense. Kevin Harvick has brought a lot to the sport of NASCAR, has put together a very good racing career. For the most part, I'd say he's pretty well loved. I've never personally met anybody that has uttered the words "fuck Kevin Harvick" when you mention him. Not saying they're not out there. I just personally haven't met them. I'm sure there's some, but nonetheless,
one of them is on the screen right now.
Oh, that's right. Slade doesn't. I should have known better. I should have known. It just so happens, but it is what it is. So yeah. And since switching to Stewart Haas, he's been one of their most consistent and best driver. His 37 wins since joining the team is the most among any drivers during that stretch, and his 60 career wins are tied for ninth all time with Kyle Busch. With that being said, it's going to leave a gaping hole in Stewart Haas racing, especially if Amarillo doesn't. You know what I'm talking about. I can't spit it out right now. But
Eric,
yeah, Eric. Especially if Eric leaves, that's going to be two holes. 50% of. I lost my train of thought as soon as I said two holes. So basically, 50% of that team is, going to be missing, and that's the better 50%. As far as the team goes, if I'm in that position, like you said, with Stewart not, starting to really disagree with NASCAR and how things are going, I could very well see the possibility of them just selling it, or maybe making it smaller, a little more manageable. I don't think either side of that team really needs the team, but they enjoy racing. That's why they're here. But yeah, I think that it's very well within the realm of possibility that Stewart Haas Racing could be no more after next year or this year, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely something that we're going to keep our eye on throughout the season to see how everything in that whole situation develops. I'm going to be very interested to see. We've seen Kevin Harvick have a great deal and been very public with his son Keelan and his development as a young driver. Keelan's been competing in Europe and all these other things. It's been really cool to see, Kevin kind of, have a hand in that and also getting to watch Keelan develop. He said before he would like to, get the chance to race against him. Obviously, he's going to be a little bit old and he's not going to be full time in any series. But, are we looking kind of at a possibility of like KHI returning, in the truck series at least, kind of giving Keelan when he gets to that point in that age, a stepping stone to get into NASCAR to go compete if that's what he wants to do. With the way he's competing now with the go-kart circuit and all the other things, maybe he sees IndyCar as a better fit for him in his future, or he sees F1, if he's good enough as a future possibility. So even though Kevin Harvick's stepping away from full-time racing, there's still a lot to keep our eye on with him and his son's development. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Let's go ahead. Let's move on. We had Wild Card Weekend this past weekend in the NFL. Really great games from Saturday to Monday. I'll just say this one last time before we get into it. We should not be playing NFL games on Monday in the playoffs. I think it's pretty dumb, but hey, that's just me, apparently. But let's go ahead and start on Saturday. We had the Seahawks and the 49ers. It was close right up until the middle of the third, fourth quarter. That fumble from Geno Smith really just derailed the rest of the game for the Seahawks. The 49ers get a huge win at home to advance to the divisional round. And then we had the comeback of the year so far, outpacing, I would say, the Indianapolis Colts collapse from a few weeks ago. Just because
if it would have been a better team than the Colts, like I would have given it some more credit. But
yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, blowing a 27-point lead, and falling on the road in the playoffs to the Jaguars. I mean, huge win for the Jaguars, though. They obviously earned it. Nick, we'll start with you. We'll give you a little bit more time to talk on this one since you know a little bit more. But just your thoughts on the Saturday games alone.
Saturday games, first of all, I talked about it last week when we were making predictions. A part of me wanted to see Herbert get his first playoff win. He obviously didn't get it. You play a second half like that, you don't deserve to get your first playoff win. Not that he necessarily was terrible, just as a whole, as a team, definitely let themselves down. The Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, finally, kind of getting to where they want him to be as the first overall pick. Just watching the way that he commands the team, and everybody really puts their full trust in him. It's pretty amazing to watch from a second-year player, especially when you look at the beginning of the year and how inconsistent he had looked at times, how poor the Jaguars had looked at times. And then in the early slot, I mean, Seattle was not going away. Geno Smith, every time I see him play good, I think about that interview from earlier in the season where he said they wrote him off, he ain't right back. And really, like, I expected the 49ers to jump out to a very big lead early on and just keep the throttle down. And Geno and the Seahawks did not back down. He continued to not write back and just put on a great show. I mean, the result wasn't what he and the team was hoping for. When I look at Pete Carroll, there's some questions about how much longer his career will go on. But definitely a great effort from the Seahawks. It was great to see and a great way to start out our playoff weekend.
Slade, your thoughts on the Saturday games?
So the 49ers, I mean, they did what they needed to do. Obviously, it was closer in the first half than what anyone expected, but the end game score was still kind of what we expected. As far as the Jaguars Chargers, I mean, the Chargers are just that bad, it seems. I had said that they had kind of been a silent team the last 5-6 weeks, that you hadn't really heard much about them in terms of like firepower or they're turning on at the right time. And then, I mean, it looked as if all things were pointing their way. I mean, Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half before he had even gotten to the end zone. I think it was like with a few minutes left in the first half, he finally got his first touchdown pass. That was to put them down by, I don't know what, 18. It was like 24-7 or something, like somewhere around there. That would be not 18, but yeah, it was just ridiculous. That's about what time I went to bed. And then I woke up to the 31-30, and just ridiculous. I mean, George and I had bets for 28-27 both ways. We knew, or we had both hoped that it was a 1-point game. It ended up being a 1-point game. Just we didn't get our bets to hit.
She just threw $50 on Jacksonville to cover the plus 1.5.
Right. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick: Trevor Lawrence going to the Waffle House after the win,
and there was nobody there. So Jacksonville's Waffle House must not be like the rest of the country.
I'll talk about these two games real quick. First, with the 49ers Seahawks game. Again, Nick, like you said, everybody thought it was going to be a blowout from start to finish. It looked like it was heading that way. It was 17-0 early. And then all of a sudden, here comes Seattle storming back. They tie it up. They actually took the lead going into halftime because thanks to a dumb penalty on San Francisco's behalf. But still, a great fight to see out of the Seahawks. No matter if you say Seattle or Seahawks.
Yeah, it don't help.
No, but nonetheless, looking back, if you look at the beginning of the season, nobody had the Seahawks making it here, especially after the Russell Wilson trade. Everybody thought that the Broncos were going to be the best team in the AFC West. The Seahawks were going to be fighting for the first overall pick, and here they are in the playoffs, and they took the number 2 seed to the end. As far as the Chargers and the Jaguars game goes, yeah, Herbert did not play the greatest second half. I mean, I would argue he didn't play that good of a first half. But at the end of the day, I'm not putting the full loss on him. Just like I'm not going to put the full loss on Brady or Kirk Cousins. He had zero line help. Again, we've seen it in multiple games this past weekend. Quarterbacks just running for their lives. They also had no run support there. There was no play action pass then they go off of. Again, he was missing throws. He did not look the greatest, but at the end of the day, he had zero help from his team. Obviously, his defense just completely falling apart in the second half. I understand the controversy with Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa. You still can't act like that. And I mean, should he have been flagged for that? Yeah, you could argue that. I would say no. The way that the ref kind of went up to him and then continued to confront him and then threw the flag, I would say is a bit much and a little bit undeserved. But still, you have to understand at that point in that situation, you can't get to the sideline first and then, throw your little temper tantrum, which again was rightfully deserved, but you can't just start throwing your helmet and stuff while you're still in the field. I see both sides of it. I kind of take Joey's side, but you still need to understand the situation. Walk 5 more feet and then you're on the sideline and you can kind of do whatever you want then. They had 67 rushing yards at total for a team. That's not going to get it done in the playoffs in any aspect. And Jacksonville, the way they kind of just rallied around each other in the second half. Doug Peterson, again, I don't think gets enough credit as a head coach. He got ran out of Philly for one bad season after taking them to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying he's the second coming of Jesus, but he deserves a lot more respect than he gets in a lot of circles. So I was happy to see him get a win. Then you move on to the Sunday and Monday games. Buffalo squeaks out a close one, a game all three of us thought was going to be a blowout, ends up being a 3-point game. The Giants upset the Vikings. Again, I'm not putting down Kirk Cousins, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Cincinnati holds off Baltimore thanks to a late fumble, and then Dallas destroys Tampa Bay. Slade, we'll go to you first this time. Your thoughts on the Sunday and Monday games.
So the Bills-Dolphins game was just crazy. I mean, the Bills played, I think, their worst offensive game of the season. I mean, you saw Josh Allen. I mean, he was fumbling for the ball in some play. I mean, they were just in his face every play. As far as the Dolphins, I mean, I kind of wish that they would have been able to get the win. I think that the state of Florida would have unbanned Jules and they would have labeled it a performance-enhancing drug because I don't know how he got caught with that on the sidelines. I mean, I don't know if that's actually – I mean, it seems like it is because he hasn't denied it or anything yet. But the game was – it was a really great game to watch in terms of just the play going back and forth. I mean, obviously it didn't seem like it was going to at first, but then the Dolphins kind of rallied. But, yeah, I think that in terms of Sunday, Monday, I mean, the Giants game, we looked back at – I think we had talked about it last week that a 6 seed has won every year or something like that, and it was between the Giants and the Ravens. You had said definitely not the Ravens, or maybe that was Nick. But so the Giants took care of that to keep the 6 seed theory going. The Bengals, I thought that game was a lot closer than what it could have been. I thought that the Bengals got their win last week against them, and then Lamar again didn't start, which, I mean, I think is good for Lamar. I mean, he has the chance to sign generational difference in money for him and his family. I mean, he could sign a $200 million deal this offseason, and Robert Griffin had come out and said about how, like, he's the exact reason why you don't just go out there and play. But yeah, I think the worst game that we saw was the Cowboys Bucks, and it was mainly because we all had money on it in some aspect. We were kind of all on the same plan. It wasn't like any of us needed the other person to lose for us all to hit. Like there was a chance for us all to hit, but it was just rough to watch the Bucks. I mean, the first time they get near the red zone, Brady throws a ridiculous pick. I mean, it wasn't
his first
close.
pick in like 5 years.
Yeah,
longer than that.
In the red zone. In the red zone.
or
I
4
mean,
years, 4 years
he was
in the
7-0
red.
against the Cowboys going into this. I mean, Stephen A. Smith told Dak Prescott's dad he was going to throw 2 interceptions in the game. It was just ridiculous leading up to the game. It just all signs pointed towards the Bucks. And I mean, the Cowboys have obviously had the better season. It's just everyone was on the Bucks side in terms
Yeah.
of who was going to win. And then, I mean, the Cowboys go out. I think they said that this is the second most points they've scored in a postseason game ever. And I mean, in terms of their team and how many years they were able to make the Super Bowl, and just, I mean, obviously they haven't been that great in recency, but yeah, I think that 31 points scored that's crazy that ties second most scored
Yeah.
points in a playoff game for them.
And
But yeah, I think it's pretty crazy that it took to Monday for us to see a bad game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
before we go to Nick, I might be wrong on this, but I believe that's the first time that we've seen the Cowboys win a road playoff game. I don't think we were born the last time it happened.
Yeah.
But Nick, your thoughts on all the games?
So yeah, first of all, sorry, I got to backtrack here. I'm focused on Monday now. So yeah, Bills Dolphins game, great game to watch. Definitely a whole lot better than any of us could have predicted. Obviously, like Slade said, probably the worst offensive outing for Buffalo all season. Josh Allen, especially in that first half, keeping it close with some of his turnovers. You know, this Bills team is a team that we thought we could see in the Super Bowl the last 2 years, and I can tell you we're not going to see him in the Super Bowl again if Josh Allen plays like that again. If he has one more game like that this offseason, they're not going. I mean, he has the Bengals, and then if they make it, the Chiefs. You cannot have, you cannot be playing like that against Joey Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. And Dolphins quarterback, I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I had it before I went to say it. Oh God, number 19. I can't think of his name,
Tyler
and I'm
Thompson.
just yeah. Sorry about that. He played well in a position where I think that the only people who might have had high expectations were McDaniels and the rest of the team. But he really went out there, balled out, gave Josh Allen, a scare. And as much as I've been rooting for the Bills the last couple of years, and I have them in the Super Bowl this year, um, I can't lie. It would have been great to see that upset happen, just because of the pure emotion and just the shock of it. But again, great game. Vikings, Giants. Um, you know, I thought that Kirk Cousins was going to struggle more throughout the game. Everybody knows he prefers his 1 p.m. slot. And the Giants have
Sounds like a fucking nap time.
right. And the Giants have played well all season. I think they might have played their best game of the season, this weekend, and obviously it was enough to get them on to the next round. It's great to see that Dabble's doing great things over there. The team is, healthy for the most part, and really playing at least what I would expect would be, how they want to be playing. So again, good to see that. Um, Last game Sunday night. I'm drawing a blank here.
Bengals,
We
Ravens.
just talked, yeah, Bengals Ravens stuff. Um, Again, like you said, that was a lot closer than what we thought it was going to be. The Ravens defense, really stepped up and did their best. I'm very torn on Huntley. We've seen him play some absolutely outstanding games, and then we've seen him play some crappy games. And from what I watched, I don't think that the Ravens deserved to be as close in that game, but they were, which just goes to show everybody else that's around there. Um, the whole Lamar Jackson thing. Yeah, as someone who watched RG3 play through that injury for my team, like it's good that he sat out, especially because, in my opinion, even if they happen to squeak that game out again, they have Bills and Chiefs. It's not looking good. Sit that game out, get your big contract. I personally think he's more than likely getting franchise tag, but that's just me. It is what it is. And then Monday night, I would like to start this off for any Cowboys fans who might be listening, who might have heard me last week. I was wrong. I apologize. But good luck next week. That's all I got to say about Dallas. I don't think they're doing the same thing against 49ers. You got lucky and happened to play the worst team on the NFC side this week. So, good luck next week. I'll see you on the couch after that. And Tampa Bay, I mean, we talked about it a couple times throughout the season. Just not when you talk about Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, just not the offensive production throughout the whole season, but especially last night or on Monday, depending on when these people are listening to this. That you would expect from a team with those kind of names on it. Now I know that O-line is absolutely terrible. And against a pass rush like the Cowboys, even Tom Brady obviously can't do a whole lot. But when you look at when Tom Brady did have a little time to throw and tried to make throws, he looked more like Zach Wilson out there. Um, the actual Zach Wilson on the field, not the Zach Wilson that I hyped up early in the season. So it definitely absolutely terrible to watch. I wanted to turn it off, but I had hopes that maybe Brady would have one more left in him against the Cowboys, but he just did not.
Yeah.
Do you guys did you guys hear the J.K. Dobbins interview?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I'll back up. I'll go from Monday night backwards, just because we just talked about the Cowboys. This is a Tampa Bay team that we've seen throughout the year. I think we just all believe that the playoff Brady magic was still alive. It's very clear it's not. And again, I'm not putting that loss last night completely on him. Yeah, he made a lot of really bad throws at times. That red zone interception was one of them. But we also had Mike Evans dropping a wide open pass that could have been a touchdown. He also had zero time. I mean, credit to the Dallas defensive line for getting pressure nonstop. They could not come up with anything to slow him down. I watched the Manning cast last night, and they just sat there and talked about how they refused to do anything with Micah Parsons. They just kept believing
Ridiculous.
that they were going to win one-on-one in that situation, and he was getting home every play.
That should have been Leonard Fournette's one job. Every time they stepped down for offense, he should have just been there trying to find number 11.
Yeah, well, because he didn't do anything else the rest of the game.
Yeah, speaking of Fournette, he couldn't play anything else.
50 yards.
I don't think he had that many. But yeah, so it's 100% on Tampa Bay. Game should have been closer if they would have made one more extra point. I hit my over bet, but hey, it is what it is. But it sucks.
I'm surprised we made it this long without mentioning the extra points.
Yeah, I think
that
it's
was
just because of the fact that they still won and they won by so much. It's just like, Now,
I have never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
about anything.
Dak is two-faced also with that situation.
I agree. But at the same time, he has also done a lot of really good things for that team this year. Yeah, he struggled with his extra points last night, but I believe he has the most consecutive makes of 60 yards or more in the NFL right now. It happens. I mean, we see kickers do it all the time. It's not often we see him do it 4 times in a row.
From 27 yards.
Yeah. Hey, he got it back on track at the end of the night. He made one. And so at the end of the day, I think they'll be fine with the kicker moving forward. Now, if he misses the first one next week, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of head scratching going on.
You're going to see Zeke out there trying to kick the ball.
I was going to say, this is the week where you have open tryouts in practice just in case. Because I have a feeling that at the very least, CeeDee Lamb could put a couple through. He's a very talented, athletic guy. He could probably kick some extra points. So what is it, 25 yards or something like that? Easy. If not, call me. I can hit 25-yard extra points. I promise.
You couldn't. No,
I can.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I could.
The
Dude, I played
crazy
soccer
thing
for 7 years. I'm a great kicker.
During the second one, I was like, oh, it looks like it's really curving after he's kicking it. There must be some wind. And then you just look at the replay and the flags are just straight down. It's what is this dude doing? He's putting some extra spin on the ball. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, my favorite tweet of the night was they were like, if you go back and watch, he's actually getting closer as the night goes on. His first one was way right, and then he started working in, and finally
the last miss he hit the top of the freaking post.
Yeah, finally the fifth one sneaks in. But yeah, moving on. So to the Bengals Ravens game. Again, the Ravens did what they had to do. They kept the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. We saw as soon as the Bengals got the ball, they were moving quickly. They were able to score. But they just ran the clock. They didn't ask Huntley to do too many things. But yeah, to what Slade was talking about with J.K. Dobbins, I absolutely agree with him. Why are you not giving him the ball on the 1 yard line? We saw him muscle his way in for their first touchdown of the game. And he was there. He was hungry. He was eating the entire game. He was getting yardage. And then all of a sudden you get to the 1 yard line. I believe it was 1st and goal too. And you said, no, we're going to QB sneak it. And Huntley makes a really dumb decision to try and jump over the top with the ball sticking out. So I 100% agree with J.K. Dobbins there. He has every right to be upset.
They should have ran like a wildcat.
Yeah,
freaking quarterback out to the left. Mark Andrews getting ready to push Dobbins. I don't know.
I said this back when we saw these college football teams doing either a really stupid 2-point play or getting to the inch line and not making a proper play call. We saw TCU run out of shotgun for some reason. We saw Texas A&M run probably the dumbest play for Was it a 2-point conversion, or were they? I think they were maybe
I think
even trying to score. But regardless,
whatever it was.
line up in I formation and just if when your running back is that good, just hand the damn ball off to him.
Yeah.
Or
HB
line him up
guy.
at fullback. Yeah, or line him up at fullback, and like you said, put Andrews behind him, and Andrews can push him into the end zone. There's so many different ways to attack it. Your quarterback trying to jump over pile is not one of them. So yeah, I understand his frustration. I think it's 100% warranted. As far as the Lamar situation, yeah, I agree 100%. He should not have been playing. Knee problems are not something to mess with, whether you're in a contract season or not. Again, RG3, no matter how much I hate him, he is absolutely the perfect example of why you don't try to rush those things. My only thing is, I would have liked to have seen him travel with the team, still be on the sideline and be there with them. But I understand his kind of viewpoint of it. But hey, again, that's just my thoughts. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think he's either already made up his mind if he's leaving or coming back, and still wanted free agency this year. Like you said, maybe he gets franchise tag. We'll have to see. Um, but looking ahead to the Bengals Bills game, as far as the Bills go, I think they walked into that game. They got up 17-0 and went, yeah, this is easy. And they you could see a clear relaxation, taking their foot off the pedal, whatever you want to call it, and that let the Dolphins get right back into it. As far, I think they'll be fine. I think they kind of got that wake up call in the second half. Again, we saw them stretch that lead out though, and then again they started coasting. Miami winds up right back in it. This is going to be a very good game because the Bengals have definitely shown struggles here the last few weeks, especially this past week. But so of the Bills, I don't think this is going to be a super high scoring affair like everybody thinks it will be. I think it's going to be a struggle. But I'm definitely looking forward to the game. And then for the Giants Vikings, Giants just ran the ball better. We saw the Vikings. I believe they only had 61 yards of rushing. When you have Dalvin Cook, that's not something that you want to. That's not a stat you want to have. Kirk Cousins again is getting a bad rap for this game. It's not on him. He had a really good day, 31 of 39, 273 yards. Just their defense could not slow down the rushing attack. They wind up with 142 yards. The Giants do on the ground. They took up a lot of time on the clock. They kept the ball out of Cousins' hands, and they definitely slowed down Justin Jefferson. I feel bad for the one guy that almost won $1 million if Justin Jefferson would have scored
1 yard.
Would have scored the first touchdown. Let's go
Almost
ahead. Let's
as bad as you missing your over by an extra point when he missed 4. We feel worse for you than that $1 million guy.
Yeah. I would have been happier. My win would have made me so happy because I saw this one guy put like $450,000 on the under to hit. I was like, now I want me winning $25 and you losing $450,000 would make me ecstatic. I lost $2. Yeah. At the end of the day, I lose $2. It's okay. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the divisional weekend. We have Jacksonville and Kansas City. Saturday afternoon, we have the Giants and Eagles Saturday night. And then you look to Sunday, Cincinnati, Buffalo in the afternoon, and Dallas and San Fran at night. Slade, your picks for the games.
First off, unpopular opinion. I think there should be a 1:00 game and a 4:30 game on each day. I don't think it's necessary to have an 8:15 and a 6:30 p.m. game. You have the whole day time slotted out. If I start watching at 8:00 in the morning, I really can only hear so much about that team. Like there's not 13 games that day. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. But for the first game, I have the Chiefs winning this one. I mean, they're 8.5-point favorites. I think that it's in Arrowhead Stadium. Whether it's legal or not, they might have to pump some noise in there just to get the Jaguars away from what they're used to. But yeah, I think the Chiefs easily win that one. I think the Eagles-Giants game is the closest game for me. I think the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites, but the Giants turned it on last week. I mean, they might be clicking at the perfect time. And I saw a stat that said that the Eagles are all or nothing teams. They've never just won 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. Like in the last 10 years, they either lose the first game and are out, or they win every game and win the Super Bowl. So I think this is gonna be a tougher game than what the Eagles look like on paper. I think the Bengals are gonna get the win over the Bills. I think the Bengals got the shit end of the stick with the injury to DeMar. Obviously they did the right thing. they elected to not play the game at all. But the whole coin flip thing really could have screwed them. And I mean, we still could see that if with whoever gets to play the Chiefs or whatever, you know. But I think that the Bengals are going to come out real hungry. I think that, like you said, it's definitely could be a low scoring game. I think that, I don't know, maybe like 20 points in the first half, and then I think they're just going to try and run the ball and see who can make the least amount of mistakes in the second half. And then the 49ers Cowboys, I think this is going to be the biggest blowout of all the games. I think the 49ers are going to just run the ball all over the Cowboys. I think that they're going to show everyone else what it takes to stop Micah Parsons. And if that's just putting Christian McCaffrey on Micah Parsons every down, then that's what they have to do. I mean, that's my picks for this upcoming weekend.
Nick, yours?
Yeah. So first up, like Slade said, I think the Chiefs are going to win. Not to discredit the Jaguars, I think the Jaguars are going to give them a hell of a run this weekend. Not saying it's going to be a close game, but when you're watching the game, it might seem closer than what the score actually is. This is a very good Jaguars team, very young, very talented. I think they have a bright future ahead of them, but I don't think that bright future is right now. I think the Chiefs handle this. Um, Philly, New York, third time facing this year. Divisional rivalry. I think it's going to be a great game, like Slade said. I think, like the Jaguars, I think New York is going to give Philly a run for their money. We've seen Philly, they had what 3-4 weeks to clinch the 1 seed, and it took until week 18 to actually do it. I've talked about it before. Philly always has a collapse in their year. Yeah, you could argue that happened in the game against Washington, but usually Philly's collapse is like a season-ending thing. Well, if that's going to happen, it's going to be now. The Giants know what they're looking for. They've seen them twice. The Giants need to rely on that run game. That's been the one thing when Philly has lost that they've struggled against is the run game. Use that run game, to your play action, let Daniel Jones get out of the pocket and make some plays. I know his receiving core isn't that great, but we've seen what he can do with what little he has. Contrary to Slade, I think that the Bills end up winning. This is going to be a great game, whether it's scoring, low scoring, whatever it is. These are two teams that are familiar with each other, and two great young quarterbacks that are going to be looking to prove that they're better than the other. It could come down to a last-second field goal, but just because I want to see the Bills win and I have them in the Super Bowl, I'm going to go with the Bills here. And then last but not least, 49ers versus the Cowboys. I already said I think the Cowboys are going home. For the sake of not jinxing it, so we have a repeat, I'm going to say that it's going to be a closer game than what Slade thinks. But I mean, to me, like, I've never been a football coach. I'll be the first person to admit that. But if I have somebody like Micah Parsons lining up against me, and then I have Christian McCaffrey lining up beside me, I'm just lining up Christian McCaffrey to whatever side Parsons is on, and when he rushes, I have a dump out there, and I'll take Christian McCaffrey one-on-one with a linebacker all day long. But again, I'm not a coach, so it is what it is. But I do have the 49ers winning that game.
Yeah. I'll start with that game. I think it's going to be. I 100% believe and disagree with Slade. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. It has a possibility to, absolutely, but I think it's definitely going to be a good back and forth game. We saw these guys play the playoffs last year, and I think the 49ers they have enough holes that the Cowboys can exploit to keep it close. Easy over there. But yeah, I think, I mean, we saw how good Dallas can be when they're clicking on offense and defenses like they did on Monday night. So I think it could be a very good game. It might end up being the best game of the week. You look at the Buffalo Cincinnati game. It's calling for snow. It's not supposed to be super cold. Not saying obviously Cincinnati deals with elements as well. But when you're trying to play in the snow, it's going to hinder your offense no matter how used to it you are. So I can definitely see that being a low scoring affair. Like I said earlier, very excited to see this get played out. I know DeMar Hamlin was not in the stadium this past week. I think he 100% is there to kind of give that team and that fan base an extra little boost going to that game. I think I think Buffalo cleans up a lot of their mistakes from last week. They're obviously not going to take this opponent very lightly. So I'm going to take Buffalo in that game. You look at Jacksonville and Kansas City. They actually played November 13th. Jacksonville won by 10 points. But since that game, Jacksonville is 7-1. Their one loss coming to Detroit, 40-14. So this is a Jacksonville team that has definitely hit their stride. Aside from the first half this past week, I still think Kansas City is just going to be a little bit too much. I see this being a touchdown game. I don't think Kansas City is going to blow them out of the water or anything like that. I think they just have enough playoff experience around them. Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns when they played the first time. I don't think there's enough Jacksonville can do to kind of change that outcome. He might only throw for 3, but I think Kansas City's defense, even though it's not the strongest that we've seen in years past, I think they're going to do enough to slow down um, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, obviously we saw uh, the Chargers had something figured out in the first half, so I think the Chiefs can kind of piggyback off that and slow him down throughout the whole game. And then as far as the Giants and Eagles go, I'll just say this: I think the Eagles win this only because they're playing at home. It's going to be 8 o'clock at night. I don't want to be playing in Philly 8 o'clock at night in the playoffs. But
They need to get the players on a helicopter out of there.
yeah,
If New York wins, they need to own a helicopter out of there. Well, if they lose too.
Yeah, either way.
Listen, when Eli Manning was in his 4th year, he got the Giants into the playoffs in the wild card, and they won the Super Bowl. Daniel Jones is in his 4th year. He got the Giants into the playoffs. They upset a really good team in the first round.
And Eli's going back to Philly.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying there is.
Eli's
just like we said with the Bucs last week. I mean, they had never lost to Dallas in the playoffs. Brady had never lost to Dallas. I believe he was 5-0 heading into that game.
In all fairness, Daniel Jones and Eli Manning both have a similar level of look like they're on the spectrum. So I can see it. Just
say that. I mean, there's history there. I saw somebody post about that at the beginning of the year, like, hey, everybody's hating Daniel Jones, but Eli won a Super Bowl in his 4th year, and I was like, there's no way. And then they made the playoffs and they won this past week. I was like, not saying it's happening, but it's a little weird to see.
And the thing that I told you about the Giants, and that they're all or nothing in the playoffs.
I thought you were talking about the Eagles, but okay.
No, that was the Giants. The Giants have won every game in the playoffs, or they've lost the first one and been out.
I just kind of turned you off and just looked at my phone when you were talking, so sorry about that. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to our last topic. Nick, I'll let you present this. Took you 5 different tries to pick your topic this week.
It did. I did. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about this week other than the NFL playoffs. Luckily, Kevin Harvick is retiring after the season, so we had something else to talk about. But here we are. So I want to know, when you watch a championship series, a playoff and a championship of any sport, which sport do you think, when that champion raises their trophy over their head, which sport do you think that champion is best represented as the best team in that league?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to go first. I have no clue how to answer this question. I was confused with the first one, and I'm still a little confused.
Okay.
Nick,
I'm ranking mine. Yeah, you go first.
Okay. See, I wanted to do a ranking, but I didn't feel like dealing with all that because I couldn't decide. So I'll go first here. So I went with the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think that for the same reasons, you could argue the MLB and the NBA, but I didn't pick those because I like hockey. The 7-game series through all phases of the bracket. So you think about MLB, is it just the wild card that they do the 3-game series or 4-game? I don't know, whatever it is. I don't watch baseball. So yeah, the 7-game series throughout every single phase of the playoffs. The better team is gonna have to win 4 games out of 7 to advance. It's not just, you think about the NFL, you might get lucky on a fluke and make it to the next round, maybe 2 flukes in a row, make it to, whatever. But every single phase of the playoffs in hockey, you got to win 4 out of 7 games, which in my opinion is the best way to prove that you're the better team. And obviously, like every other sport, there's seeding based on the regular season performance, which decides, who gets home ice advantages throughout the playoffs. And you have to play anywhere from 16 to 28 games. I did the math, so that could be wrong. Within the span of what would you say, month and a half, 2 months? That Stanley Cup playoffs
month and a half, yeah.
Month and a half, yeah. And that absolutely demands the best from every player, especially in a sport that already requires 82 games to be played. And in my opinion, hockey is arguably the most physically demanding sport in the world. Again, 82 games, not just being physical, running into each other like football, but skating up and down the ice at full speed. it takes a lot. And even the goalies we've talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on here, but even the goalies, it looks lot harder, or it looks less hard and less physically demanding than what it actually is to be an NHL goalie. But again, the Stanley Cup playoffs not only prove who the better team talent wise is, but also the better conditioned team, the better disciplined team, and the better mental team. Because again, it's very hard, very strenuous to go through that 16 to 28 games in order to raise up the trophy.
Yeah. I ranked mine in the top 5. So fifth, I put the MLB. Again, their wild card play in series I hate. And you need to get lucky the entire time with injuries. I feel like injuries affect the MLB playoffs way more. And now you have cheating and stuff as well. Um, Number 4, I put the PGA. Only for the simple fact that I hate how they do the Tour Championship. I talked to you guys about this the other day. Going in and having the leader at -10 to start, and he just needs to not fall apart the entire weekend. I don't think is a fair way to do the playoffs. I think there's better ways to do it. We'll do that in another episode. Number 3, I put the NFL. Again, you can have you need to play hard the entire game. Pause. But there's still fluke ways, fluke injuries, and so on that can happen. And then you see these teams that really aren't deserving. Honestly, if you look back at, I just mentioned Eli Manning winning the 2007-2008 season. They should not have been the Super Bowl champions. They were not the best team. The Patriots were, but they just didn't play a complete game, and the Giants wind up as your Super Bowl champions. Number 2, I actually put the NHL. Just because you can have a team go in there, I'm not saying that the wild card team that sneaks in is going to win, but you have teams that are second or third in their division, not even the conference, second, third in their division, winding up in the playoffs just because they get hot at the right times. Again, I think they have the best playoffs overall. I'm not saying that. I'm not disagreeing with you there, and I've said it before. They have the best playoffs. I put the NBA first though, because 9 times out of 10, the best team all season goes on to win the championship. We know what teams are playing in the NBA Finals by January, just about every year. This year is a little bit different. I feel like we talked about this again yesterday. I think it's the most wide open season we've had in years in the NBA. But I mean, you look past years, we knew it was going to be Cavs Warriors for 5 years straight, and it was going to come down to that series. And so I think that's the only reason I put the NBA ahead, is just because again, this year is different, but we knew who was going to be playing who, come June.
That's fair. Slade, do you want to take a shot at it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it in terms of like what I pay attention to and what I watch. I think that if I'm only going to put my time towards something, if I absolutely like want to watch it, or if it's got like that thrill factor, I think first and foremost, I'd say, just like George, the NBA is a sport that I will not watch the entire season at all. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's amazing to watch because not only is it, you get multiple series within the teams playing each other. So like, I mean, it's probably the only sport that I do bandwagon for, in that I started watching the playoffs with the Golden State Warriors when they were winning. And so it's just nice to see now that everyone's just putting together these major teams of just star-studded athletes and just going at it. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 teams now that have just about 90% of the talent within the NBA on their teams, it seems like. The Celtics being the only one now that has completely built it from the draft, But second, I would go with the NFL. I think that we're in that time right now. You get to see a new team kind of emerge each season. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I would have never picked the Jaguars to be in the playoffs. And here we are saying that if they have a perfect game and their defense can somehow get some interceptions against Patrick Mahomes, they could have a close game. I'm not saying they could win, but I would have never said at the beginning of the season they would have even been within 10 points of the Chiefs, like their 10-point loss earlier in the season. But and then third, I guess I would say hockey, because I got to watch it last year. I was real impressed with the Dallas Stars. I don't even know how to say his last name, but the goalie. And he did. What's his name? Odinger.
Yeah, I didn't think for a second. I was like, oh, that's right.
But yeah, so I mean, I watched every game that Dallas Stars played last season, and it was mainly because this dude was just ripping off saves left and right. That it was just ridiculous. But yeah,
and he picks the Blues to be his favorite team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had to go with something realistic. I mean, I'm not going to Dallas anytime soon, so.
I think I'd go
You
to
act like
Dallas
St.
before I go
Louis
to.
is that much.
I know. I was gonna
closer.
say. I think I'd go to Dallas
The
before I go to
wrestling
St. Louis.
championships are in St. Louis like every 3 or 4 years, so I have a
all
better
right.
chance of going there.
So sorry.
That's fair.
All right.
Damn, you are on my back today, George.
George is pause.
No, don't pause.
Don't
He said it
pause.
right. He said it right.
Coming on his back.
No,
All
I
right.
did not say coming.
Not yet. That'll do it for this week's episode. We thank you guys for checking us out. As always, don't forget to head over to w.gg and use code JackWagon for 10% off your order. That would really help us out. We would greatly appreciate it. We love Dubby. Slade, you give the whole Dubby pitch because every time we go off the air, you talk about it, and we're like, why don't you talk about it? So
Slade had this great last week.
yeah, so go ahead,
No,
give us
no,
the Dubby. No, I don't care.
I can't give
Shut
it.
up.
I can tell
Do
you
the
what I
Dubby
wanted
pitch.
to say. My car got robbed the other day, and I wanted to say that the only thing that was stolen out of it was my Dubby gear because it's that good. People are stealing the shit from you. But that didn't actually happen, so I couldn't say it.
You're pathetic. All right, that's.
I
our
got a
episode
shirt
this
to wear
week.
next week.
Yeah,
There we go.
that's our episode for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. And yeah, damn it, Slade.
See you guys.